We'll get started. Welcome and hello to everyone. Good morning, good afternoon from wherever you're attending. I know a lot of you are joining us from Europe. Please tell us where you're joining us from so that we can tailor this session to you in the chat. So you can go ahead and put the city or the company that you're joining us from. That'll be great. My name is Saul Guzman, and I am the Communications Director here at Alvanon. I will be your host for this special virtual event titled Tips for Success When Using Standardized Avatars, presented by Alvanon ahead of the IACDE 3D Summit. Your panelists, we have Christina Onusko, Director of Blocks and Grading Services here at Alvanon. We have Kimberly Wick, Technical Consultant at Alvanon, and we have Elizabeth Maginot, Technical Consultant at Alvanon. If you're having any tech issues, please send me a chat privately to see if I can help. If you would like to take a second, I would like to take a second to talk about the audio. You can find that in your Zoom user interface. If you're having trouble with it, make sure you have selected the proper audio outputs by clicking on the up arrow to the right of the microphone. And just so that you know, this is a very intimate session. So we would like to encourage you, if you can, to join us on video. If not, there's going to be a presentation mode for you guys to see. And then lastly, this session will have time for questions and answers at the end. If you have any questions for any of our speakers, you can submit them by clicking on the chat. Write the questions there, and we'll try to get to as many of them as possible. All right, Chris, I'll let you take it away, and I'll leave it to you guys to introduce yourselves.
All right, thanks. So, hello, everyone. So very glad you could join us today. I'm just going to click ahead here a little bit. You know, we're really happy to have this little meet and greet session to be able to give you a little bit more information about just bringing the virtual AlvaForms into your 3D system and how to go through the poses. We're going to talk about everything that's available. Before I go further though, you know, Saul kind of gave us an introduction. I'll just let you know that I'm Chris, and I'll have Kim and Liz just say hello here as well.
Hi, everybody. I'm Kim Wick, and I am a technical consultant. I work on the blocks and grading team.
Hi, everyone. Liz Maginot here. I'm also on the blocks and grading team, technical consultant.
So I just want to let all you guys know that Kim and Liz are deep into it 3D users here at Alvanon on my team. And so they have a lot of really great stuff to share because they are in 3D pretty much every day. And we work in 3 systems, Browzwear, Flow, and Optitex. And we're primarily going to stay focused in showing you some things about Browzwear and Flow today. So, you know, as Saul mentioned, we will have time at the end for some question and answers. Please do put some of them in the chat as we're going along. If we happen to catch them, we may stop and answer them. We have a little bit of information to go through with you and hopefully give you some insight into accessing the virtual AlvaForms and a little bit about the advantages to using standardized avatars. I just want to talk a little bit before we get going about you're going to hear us talk about a standardized avatar throughout this, and you've already heard me say it several times. And I just want to clarify what that means. You know, it really means using an avatar that best represents your customer demographic. So that means, you know, we're talking about shape, size, and proportion. And when it's standardized, then that means it's something that those are aspects about it that can't be changed, which would be different than working only with the parametric avatar. And, you know, that might mean different things, right? Depending on your brand and, or what you might be using avatar for. You know, it could be a standard series representing a specific geographical demographic might be the best solution for a brand, or it might mean a custom avatar created specifically that represents the brand's requirements. Either way, if you can set that standard for your avatar and use it as a standardized avatar, there's a lot of advantages to it. And one of the biggest one is providing consistency for everyone that's using 3D. And that's a little bit of what we want, you know, we want to talk about when we're talking about the advantages of using a standardized avatar. You know, it's important that everyone is looking at the same thing, whether they are, you know, in the office, everyone is remote for the most part now. You know, you could be talking about a supplier that's thousands of miles away. You know, but it's just important that anyone who's using 3D and using the avatar and any of the assets as a result of that are looking at the same thing. So whether you're a brand with a lot of suppliers, or you're an independent designer and you're working with an individual pattern maker, you're working in 3D and they are, it's important to have that standardization. So when you hear us say standardized avatar, that's what we're talking about. All right. So the first thing we're going to talk a little bit about today, we're just going to walk you through the steps of using the avatars, the virtual Alvaforms avatars. And I'm going to turn it over to Liz here, and she's going to take us through the steps that happen after you get to the point of going to the APB and downloading the actual virtual Alvaforms.
Great, so this is just a little technicality slide. When you download your file from AVP, it's going to give you a zipped folder. So a couple steps on how to extract the files that you need. So you're going to unzip the parent folder with the extract button, and then it'll give you a multiple set of other zip files that are each size. So you find the size that you need. In this example, we're showing the Japan women's small, and you extract those files as well. So then at the bottom, we're going to give you a view. This is for Clo, but this is the same process for any other software, just the file type might show differently. But once you're finished, you should have a folder within a folder that's unzipped and has the files that you need for the avatar.
Okay, so Saul, can you give Liz presenting rights? She's going to do a little live demo here for us.
All right, Liz, I think you are host now.
Okay. So I'm going to show you guys the actual AVP login that you were given. And this is the welcome screen. A little bit about the permission file. So you may not know, but you download the permission file here with this button. And it'll give you all the software. So you pick the software that you're going to be using in. For this example, I'll just hit Clo, and it'll download for you. And to upload your permission file into your software, there's a lot of great information in this tutorial tab. So if you click on tutorial, it lists every software here. We'll maybe go into Browzwear for this example. And under the drop downs, there's really helpful videos. So hopefully this process should be really easy and streamlined, but just wanted to show you guys that information on where to go and how to get the tools you need. If any issues, you can reach out to us.
Great, thanks, Liz.
Yep. And then Chris, if you want to take it back from me,
I will do that. Perfect. Oh, Saul, I think you need to give me permission to do that.
Yeah.
I could steal it, but I can't.
There we go.
All right, thank you.
Sure. Host again once more.
All right, let me get back over here. It jumps away on me. There we go. Okay, yeah, so great, thanks for that little walkthrough. And some of you may already be familiar with that, but we just want to be sure that we're going through the basics and let you know where to find those resources should you need them. Okay, so the next thing we're going to talk about here, and Kim is going to walk us through through importing the virtual Alvaform in Browzwear and what that looks like, and then Liz is going to show it to us in Clo. So Kim, why don't you go ahead and take it away?
Sure. Once you've imported that avatar from the AVP and you've stored it in a place where you know where it's at, going into Browzwear, first you're going to select the 3D Resources tab. And then you're going to go to the plus sign where it says Add Avatar, select it, and then select Import. And then locate that file that you downloaded from the AVP and select it. And once you do, that avatar is going to open in the 3D window. And to the right of the avatar is going to be, in the context view, is going to be the Edit Avatar menu. And here you can do two things. Well, more than two things, but you really, the one thing is the avatar friction. it comes in as a default as human, but you have options of plastic, human, and cloth. And if you're using an Alvaform that mirrors your virtual Alvaform, you would want to select cloth so that when you're simulating, you're seeing the same results in digital that you're seeing in real life. The other settings that you can adjust are the prepare pose, how you want it to be when you're after your simulation is complete. And you can also adjust the distance from the ground. Once you've adjusted those settings, make sure that you save your avatar when your edits are done. And that's all you have to do. And that was kind of a quick walkthrough with the instructions, but I want to show it to you in a video, and that's on the next slide. So here we're starting out with the parametric avatar from Browzwear, and I'm going to the 3D window, selecting the plus sign, locating the avatar, opening it, and it should load in the 3D window. And to the right is my edit avatar. So I'm selecting the textures, changing it, or the avatar friction, changing it to cloth, and then the prepare pose. If you're going to change it, this is where you would change it. All of the anchor points for the avatars come in already preset up. You can change them, but there really is very little reason to do so. Save your avatar, and she's ready to use. This is the Japan size small women's.
Okay, excellent. Thanks, Kim. Okay, Liz, you want to talk to us about importing in Clo?
Yeah, so in Clo, there's 2 ways that I found to import an avatar. This is just the most user-friendly that I found, especially for down the road when you're switching poses. So you'll be adding a favorites folder into the library menu, and this is how you do that. So you hit your add button, and then you search on your computer to the drive that will hold your avatars. And I usually have a common folder that I always put downloaded avatars into. It just organizes my virtual Alvaforms really nicely so that after I add the favorites folder, I don't ever have to add it again. So you select the folder that you want, and then the picture on the right shows that my folder virtual Alvaform that's been added to my list. So then when you're ready to import your Alvaform, you already have your favorites folder located. And what you can do is click through the file path as you would on your computer. So the parent folder, then the size, and then the final screenshot in the middle shows the poses. So you can double click the pose that you want to start with, and you hit open and OK. And then this is the example of the Japan Women Small. I chose A pose. I find that pretty useful for dressing. Sometimes you might start in T pose. It's really up to you and what you're creating.
Okay, great. Thank you. So we're just going to take a look now at the virtual Alvaforms, the ones that have been given the 4 bodies for the, in particular, we're going to look at that have been given for the exercise for the IACDE conference and the exercise that you're doing. And we're just going to look at some of the features about the virtual Alvaforms that you have. So all of the virtual Alvaforms are a digital representation of the actual Alvaform that it's created from. So that means that each one is an exact duplicate of the physical geometry of the Alvaform. And that would be at every size, no matter what size you choose in the size set that might be available. Alvaform texture with measurement landmarks and seam lines, again, mimic the physical Alvaform. This is just such an important correlation between the two for consistency and for that standardization process that I was talking about a little bit earlier. Beyond the simple mannequin pose, each additional pose, and Kim's going to walk us through those poses in a minute, but each additional pose that's created by our 3D team has been developed ensuring that the muscle mass and the body deformation are anatomically correct. And that's a really important point because, you know, if you are adjusting say a parametric avatar, you know, there are additional steps that you have to take to ensure that you are getting as close to that body deformation and anatomically correct when the pose is moving as possible. And here it's already built into the avatar. So we're taking great care to ensure that even though you might have human-like features added to enhance the realism, or the body is just moving, we're still retaining all of the key body shape measurements that were there for the Alvaform. So Kim is going to walk us through the basic virtual Alvaform in the basic poses, and also the human-like and realistic virtual Alvaform. So you can just have a sense of what all of those look like. So Kim, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, this is the Japan woman size small. The basic poses that come with it are a T pose, A pose, and a regular. And for majority of garments, these three poses are going to be sufficient. Usually the A pose, like Liz said, is nice for when you're first simulating. The regular gives you a look with the arms down, and then the T pose, you know, to check the fit for upper body garments, but then also if you're looking at lower body garments, pants, skirts, etc., and you don't want to have those arms in the way when you're viewing the product. Let's take a look at the next slide, Chris. This is the Japan man size large, also the T pose, A pose, and the regular. One thing you'll notice when we're looking at these forms also, you see body landmarks that are marked at some of those key areas like the chest, the waist, the hip, and then in some secondary areas like the thigh, the bicep, and etc., so that you can map your, when you're building your pattern, you can map your pattern to the form and for careful alignment. Should we look at the next one, Chris?
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's okay. Sorry.
So those two were basic for Japan. These are for the European women, LTA. This is the size 38. This one has the A pose, but it has two different versions of it. One, the arms are out a little bit further and then drawn in. Pose A, pose 0. Pose 1, they're a little bit closer to the body. Pose 2, you have the arms down, and then pose 3 is the T pose. So for the human-like, you'll notice on this avatar, the features are a little bit more human-like. There's more definition in the face and in the hands and in the feet, and in the neck and, you know, the structure of it. There's more poses available for the human-like. There's 9 of them. So you have your standard A poses, arms to the side, T poses, but then also for checking additional function, there's arms to the front, like the pose 3, arms up, pose 4, and pose 6 is kind of a casual viewing pose. Pose 7 is if you're, you know, lifting a leg, walking up a very large step, I should say, and pose 8 if you're crouching. These are really good for checking fit on your garment as well. You know, pose 8, checking your rise on your pants, you know, when a person goes down into that crouching or seated position and then standing back up again, looking to see what's happening in the rise of the pants, etc. And these are the realistic poses for the European women LTA. One thing you'll notice when you look at these, they have the same poses as the human-like. So I won't go through those, but we've lost our body landmarks. But these are more realistic looking.
Yeah, and the important thing here too is that everything that we looked at, if these were all measured and even overlaid over the top of each other, you would see that they're all exactly the same. It's just that the more human and the realistic features have been applied. Mm-hmm. Okay, let's take a look at, oh, this is the one with the heels, right?
Yeah, we have one additional human-like, and this is, she's wearing heels. So when you look at, all of these are front on. I've got a video later on where you can see that her heel is actually off the ground. She doesn't have her shoes on in this view. But so her stature is changed just slightly because she is wearing that heel. And then the difference between this one and the other human-like one, pose 7, she's not stepping up quite as high. She's more taking a step like a normal stair would be. And then pose 8 is in an actual seated position.
Should we go on?
Sure. Mhm.
Okay, take a look at the men.
Yep. So the European men, here's the basic poses. You have your A pose, and then the A pose that's a little bit slightly closer to the body. And pose 2 is the arms down to the side, or the regular pose. And pose 3 is the arms out, or the T pose. And the human-like, same as the women. You're going to have 9 poses. And then the realistic for the men. And those
Okay.
should be all of the poses for the virtual avatars that you have available to you to work on the project.
All right, thanks, Kim. Oh, let's talk about switching poses in Browzwear.
Sure. So in Browzwear, once your avatar is loaded, it's as simple as clicking on the pose button and she will change her pose. So here I changed her just from her regular pose to she's stepping up the stairs. And for the most part, you don't have to do a whole lot of adjusting with the fabric, depending on how drastic your pose is. Now I'm going to put her into a seated pose. And I'm just turning her so that you can see her from all angles. But it does re-simulate as you change into the pose. Once it's done simulating, you have to check it and make sure that you don't have to use any styling tools to tug or pull the fabric. You know, it's just like if a person was in a seated position and they stood up and they might pull their shirt down or pull their pants up or something like that. You have those same adjustments that you need to do in 3D as well. And now she's going into her casual stance pose. Now I have the body landmarks turned off, but on the pattern, we have lines that map to the body landmarks on the avatar. So I have the ability to turn them on, and I can look and see what the alignment is of the garment on the avatar as I change poses. And you can change the fabric into a transparent view so you can see through the fabric and see if they're aligning with the landmarks on the avatar.
She appears to be stuck where she is right now.
Is the video stuck? This is the
Yeah,
last
it
pose, I
is.
think.
Yeah, she's just not getting the whole way there. I don't know if I,
shoot.
yeah, maybe. No, she's not going to go. Was there anything that you noticed when she came into this pose, Kim, that you wanted to talk about, even though we can't get it there visually right now?
Yes. You know, sometimes when what she's going to, I wish this video would have gone through, because she's going to end up with her hand on her hip. And sometimes when you switch into this pose, your garment can collide with the hand. So you have to use the style tools to kind of pull and nudge that fabric and get it away from the hand. One trick that I've learned to use is when I'm going from like a seated position to the casual pose, maybe I'll stand her up into a T pose or an A pose first, and then the dress will just kind of fall and relax and re-simulate, and then I'll put her in the casual pose, and there's very little to no colliding.
Great, thanks. I don't think we're gonna, I tried to move her forward, but I don't think it's gonna happen.
Shoot.
Okay. Well, how about if we take a look at Chloe? Liz, do you want to take us through switching the poses in Chloe and how it might look a little different?
Yeah, so these are just screenshots for how you switch poses in Basic. But it's as simple as going back to your favorites folder and double clicking on a different pose. And then the little pop-up you get, it'll say open, add, or load as morph target. You want to hit load as morph target because it's basically replacing the avatar that's in your window. And it has a 30 frame count. It just gives the avatar time to switch over 30 frames. And that's usually sufficient to leave as the default. And you hit OK, and she'll naturally start to switch.
Perfect. Should we go to the next video?
Yep.
All right.
And so the process is a little different in Chloe for the Humanlike. And I just prepared a video to show you. how to switch poses for using Humanlike.
There we go.
So I'll take you through the process of importing an avatar here, clicking through, and you'll have one AVAC file for Humanlike, and that's the one that I just brought in. I'm adding a dress to her so you can see the clothes as they move through the poses. And then up in the top right, we'll switch from simulation to animation window. And there's a really helpful PDF that's included with your avatars that you can reference very close up with all of these steps. So you'll hit record and it'll quickly go through all of the poses, all 9. And the fabric might collide and bounce as it's doing this because it does do it fairly quickly. But then in the current little type bar for frame, the current frame you can change. So you'll change that number 1 through 9 based on which pose you want to use. And once you've picked the pose, you can switch back to simulation. You can edit your garment or update the fabric. Here I'm just resimulating and doing a little bit of a tug to get it off of her low hip. Unlike Browzwear, you do have to resimulate. It seems like Browzwear finishes it off at the end, simulating. So here I've switched to that crouch pose. I'm going to go back to simulation. You can see the fabric is all bouncy. It hasn't settled because you need to resimulate. And there she is.
Okay. Hey, do you want to set up the next video, Liz?
Yeah. So in the next video, we're going to be talking about creating, is it creating the Alvaform? Sorry.
No, it's
I'm sorry.
Still, no, it's okay.
Oh, yes. Okay, so sorry. So we did an exercise in flow.
This one. Well, it's this one with the, here, let me start it for you.
This is the same one, Chris, I think.
Is it?
Mm-hmm.
Why did I think it was the one? Oh, okay. I understand where we are. Yeah. So yeah, this is we're going to look now at using the parametric avatar versus the standardized avatars. And I'm going to let Liz tell you how she set this up, where she started from, and we'll take a look at how the result is of adapting a parametric to maybe specific measurements or a standard that you're trying to get to.
Yeah, and I noticed we had a question in the chat too, kind of about this subject and using the Alvaforms that are already pre-measured versus switching measurements in Clo to get the size you want. So I hope that this answers your question. We can totally cover it more if it didn't. So please let us know. But so we started from the basic default avatar. And in Clo, there's their version of the ASTM sizing. So I wanted to try to mimic the Japan small Alvaform. I had their measurements in front of me as I was doing this exercise. And so here I'm going into the ASTM Clo sizing. I'm going to switch her to the Petite Curvy 2. That seemed like the closest starting point when I was referencing the Japan small measurements as far as girths. And I will move this window out of the way so you can see her change. So I'm hand typing through all of the measurements. I did speed it up just so that you can see it changing.
It's so funny to watch.
Yeah, and as we go down, there might be a better order to do this in. I was just kind of going down as I was reading. So she does kind of take on a slightly unnatural shape sometimes as she's morphing through. And as I'm clicking, you can see certain parts on her body are being highlighted yellow. Those are the measurements at that time that I'm updating. Also, the list of measurements in here, I'm using the advanced dress form. So it gives you a couple more options as far as vertical measurements. But this is the finished product. And in the next video we'll show you, we're going to be pulling in the Alvaform and actually comparing her and overlaying.
Liz, did you want to talk about this one before I go through the video?
Yeah, why don't you hit pause real quick?
Yep.
So just a little intro. When I pulled the Alvaform in, I wanted to make sure that any movement that I did, I was using the gizmo tools. So there's horizontal arrows in your gizmo and also vertical arrows. And I was solely using those in order to accurately shift the Alvaform horizontally and vertically to try to align. I did not want to angle her or twist, so I avoided using all of the circles in the gizmo. I just used horizontal and vertical. So you can go ahead and hit play. And so I'm dragging the Alvaform over. And on the parametric, I did make her hair and shoes fully transparent, so that's why they're missing, just to get a better representation of her shape. So I started by trying to align at the waist, and I did notice that the Alvaform was lower than the parametric because the parametric is still wearing shoes. I just have them transparent. So I moved the Alvaform up. I'm turning the Alvaform transparent so that you can see through better about how their stature has changed. Made it a little darker so it's easier to see there. And now I'm going to move in close up. I'm going to try to align her from top down. So I started kind of with the top of the head and the chin. Here's me trying to align her at her head. And then as I moved down to her apex, I noticed it was shifted off. So I moved the apex forward and down to try to align there. And as you can see, as you go down, the other areas of her lower body are not aligned. I've aligned her apex and now I'm aligning at her leg. And I kind of ended with them aligned at the foot. And on the next page, we took some more screenshots just to give you a nice still view of how their shape is different. And that's really one of the key features of the Alvaform is that their shape, stature, and proportion was really carefully developed based on the body sizing. And sometimes with parametric, it's tricky. It doesn't give you that flexibility to shift her posture sometimes or get the accurate shape. And it's just a lot of consideration as you're going. So using the Alvaform really just removes those extra steps.
Yeah, and just to add to that, Liz, too, this is an example of, say, the difference if you have brands, if you're a brand and you have suppliers working, even if they're working in the same 3D system that you are, say everyone was working in Clo, and if you wanted to create a certain body shape, you want to make sure, the odds of everything coming out exactly the same from everybody, or if you have, say, someone working in Clo, and a vendor working in Browzwear or another 3D software, and they go to make adjustments based on a measurement, the big thing is you may not all be looking at the same thing, and it would really have to do with the mostly the proportions, the stance, the posture. You can really see when you look at the visual over on the right side of your screen, you can really see the difference in posture between, we're doing this, we did this exercise solely to compare it to the standard to see where the major differences were, just to illustrate the importance of understanding what you can do with the parametric and when it might be good, and it might be good in some instances, but if you're thinking about many users or maybe external, internal users, having something that's standardized makes it much more reliable for driving consistency so that everyone is always looking at the same thing. So that's a big part of this exercise as well. So just a little bit more as we start to wrap up here, the little presentation that we have for you, the benefits to using standardized avatars. Whatever you call your standardized avatar, it should have geometry that remains constant and that it can't be changed. And that's the reason for that rather is to ensure the consistency for whoever is using it. You know, you might be able to shift the measurements in adjusting a parametric avatar, but where you might really start to see differences in posture, stance, and body proportion. You know, even if we went back to that previous slide, even though her height was adjusted, her shoulder was a little bit higher than maybe it should have been. So things like that will create differences, especially if you're looking at fit, or you're looking at a design and you want a certain proportion, it may cause differences there. Using a standardized avatar ensures that you're giving everyone, all the users, whether they're internal or external, a consistent tool, regardless of the system that they may be using. And what's important about that is that you would have a standardized avatar that can be imported into different 3D software systems. And by doing that, then you're really expanding your ability to communicate with suppliers who may be thousands of miles away using completely different software than the brand might be using in the home office. And that is the one thing about the Alvanon virtual Alvaforms. They are an exact replica of the fit form. And they are supported in many different platforms. So if you're using an AlvaForm and the 3D virtual AlvaForm that goes along with it, any user can import that and yield the same result. One thing we have found that we do want to just make a quick mention of is you really want to be sure, no matter what you're using, that you're keeping your 3D system up to date to the most current version. Mm-hmm. We had an incident where we found recently that a virtual avatar was brought into a system that had not been updated, and the measurement lines, the way it was measuring it, was completely different than what the actual virtual avatar was. And we did some digging into it and really found that it actually had to do with the fact that the user didn't have the most current 3D system. So you want to be really, really aware of that and update. I know sometimes I don't update because I get nervous that everything's going to get blown away. I think we all feel like that, right? Sometimes. But
he waits for us to do it first.
I do. I always do. And then even at that, it's like, oh yeah, I might do it. I do that with Optitex, my PD pattern software too. It's so afraid of everything getting blown away. But it's an important point. Kim, Liz, do you have anything to add to that?
Well, I just wanted to add, there was a message in the chat. Will you be able to use animations in Maximo in the future on Alvanon avatars? And that's kind of talks to about keeping your software up to date. 3D, everything is moving so fast. All of the software platforms out there are updating and doing new things constantly. So, I would say there's probably going to be a yes to that. That's coming down the road, Yeah. New things are evolving all the time.
So true. So true. We can hardly keep up with it. And to that, in closing, it's only getting better and better 3D. The thing to keep in mind, everything can look perfect. And while it is getting better and better, and we're seeing the changes, and as I said, Liz and Kim are on top of it. They're playing in it every single day. It still is important to be sure as users that we're calibrating what we're seeing in 3D and that it actually matches the physical sample. Sometimes it can be like the chicken and the egg, and we might be talking with brands who are saying, well, we expect the sample to look exactly like the 3D. And we have to remember that unless you're in the metaverse, 3D isn't real. And so, you need to be sure that what you're looking at in 3D actually replicates the sample. I don't know, Kim and Liz, you might have something to add about overstyling to get it there, right? That is not something that we want to do. So it's important to calibrate what you're seeing in 3D versus what you're seeing with the physical sample. If you're working with a standardized avatar that is a digital twin, an exact replica of the physical fit form, that helps with that calibration and consistency. Absolutely, the end goal is to achieve an authentic 3D garment. And that matches the physical. And there's a lot of things to consider that we haven't even remotely touched on today. Kim, Liz, anything you want to add before we go to questions?
No, we've gotten a couple really good questions though in the chat, so I want to make sure we have time.
Excellent.
To cover.
Well, let's go ahead and let's bounce over to some questions now.
Sorry if I pronounce your name incorrectly, Jagdish. They had a good question about, they said, hello all, I'm facing an issue while changing poses in Alvanon avatars and Browzwear vStitcher. It always goes to prepare mode with the new pose, but it doesn't seamlessly change to the pose itself. So I've experienced this, and I'm pretty sure that this may fix your problem. When you're going through a pose and the snapshot automatically populates, usually as you're working. So sometimes if you have an old snapshot in there that's linked to a prior pose, it might be switching to the snapshot that you have created prior. So I would audit through your snapshots, delete any that you don't need. And also if you're simulating a pose, sometimes that finish bar, there's a little arrow that goes around finish. It doesn't always end on its own. So if you finish before you switch poses and you don't have old snapshots, I'm hoping that should fix what you're seeing. Kim, do you have anything else to add on that?
Yeah, it's interesting, Liz, because when I read that, I had something else in mind. So I was thinking that maybe after you're adding a new pose, and then maybe you go in and do other changes, and then you it's going back and you're undressing it, dressing it again, and it goes back to that original pose again. So I was going to refer you back to that avatar editor when you import that avatar for the first time, and in that editor you can set up your pose that starts your simulation every time. So that's kind of the direction I was going with it. I don't know if that's helpful. Hopefully we answered your question.
Anything else in there, Liz?
There was another call out about if we're going to be covering size sets today, and unfortunately we didn't build that into the presentation. But if there's any specific questions about size sets, Kim and I have used size sets in Clo and also in Browzwear before, so hopefully we could provide a little bit of insight if you need.
There's a question for Chloe in here, Liz. Did you see that one? I need an avatar. This is from Jolanta. I need an avatar size adjustment. I do it in avatar corrections. According to Alvanon standard measurements table, what is the difference between Chloe avatar size adjustment and using ready Alvanon avatars? Exact size. Why is it better than to adjust standard Chloe avatar for size?
Yeah, it sounds kind of like they attempted to adjust their parametric similar to what we did. So I'm really hoping that what we showed today kind of illustrates the differences. But again, Jolanta, happy to answer any other questions if you have anything more specific.
Is this the question you were talking about earlier, Liz?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
I'm glad that you brought it up just so that the whole group can hear it as well.
Yeah. And as far as the avatar size sets, if you have a specific question, please go ahead and put it in there. As Liz mentioned, we do work with the size sets in particular, using them to help assess grading right now. The size set is also created with the same attention to detail that the core size that you might be looking at. So, and even when you're downloading the avatars for this exercise, you actually have the ability to use the whole size set in there. There are some things, some limitations about using a size set. I don't know if any of you guys want to talk to how they come into systems is what I mean. I don't mean limitations as far as the virtual AlvaForm goes, but how you can use them side by side in Clo, but you can't really do that in Browzwear just yet. Am I misspeaking to that, you guys?
Liz, do you want to talk about the latest version of Browzwear?
Oh yeah. So they there used to be like a beta test where you could pull in multiple avatars, but now in the newest version, is it 2021.3, Kim? Is that right?
Yes, it is.
Yeah. So in the newest version, there's a review mode window, which is really nice. When you switch to it, it's in the top left corner. Instead of being in your main simulation page, it goes to a review mode page. And it'll start with your main avatar that you had in your simulation window, and you can add multiple viewpoint pages. And I find it helpful to create snapshots of every size before I switch to review mode. And then what you can do is you can put those snapshots into each review mode. And it's really nice. You can kind of live update each size and resave new snapshots and look at them all side by side. It's a really cool feature, and I find it really user-friendly.
Hey, Jolanta just posted another question. Does the Alvanon avatar have friction of its material covering?
That would be for
yes.
Chloe.
Is it for Chloe? In Browzwear, yes. In the avatar editor, you can switch the friction from human to cloth. What's the third one?
Plastic.
Plastic, yeah, correct.
Yeah. In Chloe, I have not found the need to change this, and there is not the same setting that you have in Browzwear with the 3 types. It's a more scientific friction setting where it's not determined by plastic, cloth, or human. So if you do find that the fabric on the garment is clinging too much or not clinging enough based on what you're creating, you can adjust it. I think it's called static friction. And I have not found the need to ever adjust it with using the Alvanon avatars, but it is a setting that you can change.
Perfect.
And you do it by clicking on the avatar. I believe you click on the avatar and it opens up that properties window on the right. It'll be listed in there.
Okay. Well, everyone, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a pleasure, and yeah, I guess we're about to the end of our session here.
I think that's it. Thank you so much, Chris, Liz, Kim. That was really, really helpful. Even, you know, Anna, Grace, and I behind the scenes were like sort of geeking out on everything you were showing us. So thank you.
Excellent. Thanks,
you.
everyone. Thanks for joining us.
Have a good one, everyone. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for arranging this.
You're welcome.
Oh, thank you, Hans.
That was great.
Good. That was fun.
Yeah. No, it's good. It was, I mean, we read about it all the time. We talk about it. We hear Liam talk about it, but we never get into the nitty-gritty detail of it. And so that was really good for us.
These guys are into the nitty-gritty detail.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Grace, anything else? Any parting words?
I don't think so. Like, my mind is blown from how much I just learned in that session. So thank you.
Oh, great.
I'm already thinking of ways I can apply it to my clients. So yeah, that was great. Thank you so much.
Nice.
Everyone that attended.
Okay. Do you want me to send you a PDF of the deck?
Yes, please. Yeah.
Okay. I will do that, and you can send it to them. It looked like there was maybe 6 or 7 people on. Is that right? Were there a little bit more?
We had, no, I think it was right. It was about 6, 7. I saw Calvin Klein, PVH were there. As with all these things virtuals, I'm sure we'll get asked for the recording, and I think your PDF will be really helpful.
Yeah, and Jolanta is from Nike. Yeah. So, okay, great. Well, thanks, you guys. Thanks for the opportunity. I'm glad we could do it this time. Grace, thanks for all your organizing and your help.
Great.
Thank you guys. You're all amazing. Thank you so much.
Thanks, you guys.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Have a good one.
You
Bye.
too. Bye-bye.